On this episode of the AVB podcast, we've come all the way up to Montreal, Quebec, and I get the pleasure to sit down with the incredibly talented Mr. Stephen Gibb. How's it going, dude?
Going well, thanks.
Thanks for inviting us me to your studio here.
Sure.
Got to crash here last night. You've got a great place here, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been operational since a little over a year now. It's really taking shape.
It's we'll probably do some sort of walkthrough with you, kind of like we did with Matt or whatever, if you want later. But
okay.
Let's start with you the same as we start with all of our guests. I know you grew up originally in Windsor, right?
I did.
Born and raised?
Born and raised.
All right, tell me about mom and dad, the family, all of that stuff.
Working class family. We grew up just outside of Windsor in LaSalle.
Okay.
My mom was a waitress. Father was a mechanic.
Okay.
You know, like just blue collar, normal Windsor. Yeah.
Is there music?
There's a ton of music. I mean, you know the radio in
Yeah.
Detroit, and it's banging. It's so good. So there was always music at home. Musician, no.
Okay.
But encouraged from my parents, absolutely. I did have to bug them for like my first guitar. Like, guys, like I really needed a guitar.
Right.
But absolutely encouraged to be a musical household. And I asked, and they absolutely delivered.
So they had no background in it whatsoever.
No, we didn't really have a musical family at all.
Okay.
But they encouraged for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They were more than happy to...
How old were you when you asked for that first guitar?
11, 10.
Yeah.
Just a double-digit guy.
Yeah.
Young, for sure.
Do you know what it was that sort of caught your eye? Because like if you weren't around it or whatever, how'd you even know it was a thing to do?
Oh, live music. I mean, there were people around in the neighborhood,
Okay.
you know, having guitars, and guitars are strikingly handsome, I think, or just beautiful to look at. They're like classic cars, right?
Right.
And you start seeing them, and it's like, well, what is that? How is the sound coming out of this? So it was striking, and it struck a pretty prominent chord with me from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, also growing up in Canada, like much music,
Right.
like seeing earlier videos, and in that time of like early to mid 90s, like rock and roll was still cool.
It was still a thing you could find,
It was still a
right?
thing for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, popular culture at the time was influencing me for sure.
When you got the guitar at that young age and you picked it up and started playing it, was it a thing that you gravitated to right away, or did you struggle with it?
I think like any musician, I struggled, but I never put it down.
That's what I mean. I think a lot of people you battle with it or whatever, but I know I did.
Those battles are exciting though.
After 3 or 4 weeks for me, I was done the first time I started messing with the guitar. Of course, I didn't want it in the first place.
Yeah, if you don't want it, I had just the undying need to be able to make sounds that were appealing to my ears, at least even at that age.
Right.
To make things that I wanted to hear, that I could create. It was a completely new experience for me.
Did you take lessons and stuff?
I did eventually, for a couple of years. Gentleman in Windsor named Ron McMinn kind of took me under his wing. He had this great program. It was like a rock camp for like summer schools out. And he would get a group of young musicians together and basically lay out a band platform. You subscribe to the summer education.
Right.
And that was it. Like, you arrived with a group of songs and a group of musicians, and you broke it down of like, okay, what songs are we going to play in a set list? Who's going to sing this? Who's got the lead part?
So it was band school.
It was band school, absolutely. So I did that for 2 years, and it also like the idea was that there would be a final presentation.
Okay.
So
like
it
a
also
recital kind of thing.
A recital for sure.
Right.
So it got me into stage performing in front of people, which I never knew. Like,
you almost seem, and I only got to meet you yesterday. We've known each other for a very brief time, but you seem like a very reserved. Like, you don't seem like the type of guy that would be like, I need to be on stage.
No. That's why I have left the stage. My stage is studio. I like the studio platform. That's where I I prefer it. Stage, I love watching live music. I go see at least 2 shows a week.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, for sure.
But not just raring to get up there?
Not anymore.
See, and I'm the exact opposite. I see a lot of shows, but every time I go see a show, I'm either studying or just want to be there rather than here.
I like being a member of the audience.
Yeah?
And as an engineer, as a recording engineer, I am, I have a job to perform.
Sure.
And responsibilities. But I am there as a listener as well. Like, I am using my ears, absolutely. But no, I don't have a lot of interest playing live too much. I've had some great experiences. I've played some great gigs.
Yeah, because you ended up going through, as you kind of went through your School of Rock stuff, you ended up in some pretty decent bands in the Windsor area for a while. Some fairly decent. You want to walk through some of that?
Yeah. One of the first groups that kind of exposed me to touring and, more professional gigs, playing in Detroit, playing in Windsor, bigger venues, was Yellowwood with the Rideout Brothers. And there was 2 runs of that before I was eventually dismissed from the band. And in hindsight, I don't blame them for me.
See, I didn't know this part of the story. That's it.
Yeah.
You want to walk through that? Those are fun. Those are, especially if you've got some perspective, because I know, like we've talked about it, you're still friendly with Matt, you still get along.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So you want to talk me through the I got fired from Yellowwood story.
Well, I was their noise wizard. Couple synthesizers, an array of pedals,
right?
Some shocking tones to like underline beneath the Rideouts, conservative Christian sound.
Right.
Me not being a Christian, I was experimenting with some drugs, some substance abuse. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it turned out that it wasn't a fit, and they felt that musically they could go in maybe a bit more mature path, and I think it worked out well.
Because Matt seems to me, and again, I only met him for the interview, but Matt seems to me to be a very straight-laced is the wrong sort of term, but like, because he seems like he's got his like wild side, but he seems like he's a conservative dude.
I think conservative is a good way to say it. But again, I think when he has his wild side, it is through music.
Yeah.
And I was happy to be part of that with
Yeah.
him. Like, there was some fantastic experimenting of sounds and song structures. And it was all very new to me. And at the time, I was like 18.
So you're experimenting with a lot of stuff in your head at that time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And taking on another member, RF, was fantastic on the low end on bass. And we had something really special for a long time. Doing East Coast tours, played in Detroit quite a bit. It was great. And by that time, by my dismissal, my being fired, I'd started another band with the group of older musicians in the Windsor scene. And we were named the Golden Hands Before God, the Duck's Incredible Magic Band.
Yes,
and the Spirits.
Yeah, because it's not done yet, right?
No, it's not
done. One of those 6-page fucking names.
Well, I think one of the better things I read is like, you can never say you've run out of band names because this band name has a creative one.
So and that's what some major heavy hitters are. Our own, who's not here today, unfortunately, but our own George Mannery's part of that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's how I met George. George was, Matt was playing drums for us. We had a revolving door of drummers for a little bit. George was playing drums for us quite a bit. It was a fantastic fit. He was playing with the members of the band as well in It's Junk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a great fit. Me being the youngest of the band was kind of an eye-opening experience because it was completely different than the creative process with Yellowwood.
Right.
Where Yellowwood would really hash things out, and it was a really in-depth process and sometimes frustrating to be around. But at the end of the day, there was always something to show for that everyone was really proud about. It was like, wow, we were exploring some interesting, textures and sounds and stuff like this.
Right.
For me as a young musician, that was really important. And then with the hands, the golden hands, it was completely new to me because it was just more like straight ahead rock and roll. We're not going to talk so much about how we're going to make these sounds. We're going to make these sounds. And we were this crew of different backgrounds in music, and it came together really well. And through that group, it introduced me to Montreal, where I live now.
Okay.
So we had been playing some good gigs in Windsor and going to Toronto quite a bit,
mm-hmm.
and getting some leverage behind us and growing our audience, and it was fantastic. By this time, I'm still in my very early 20s, like 21, 22.
Right.
Like, young.
Yep.
And I think by the time I was 22 or 23, we ended up recording in Montreal at a studio around the corner from here. And I fell in love with the studio.
Yeah.
Sure. And the atmosphere and the work ethic and just listening for playback, for performance, as opposed to the live. The live is like, it's, you have 30 minutes, you got to perform,
right,
do your best. But in studio atmosphere, it's definitely about honing your craft, I think.
Was that your first real experience in a studio?
No, fantastic. I've always been into the DIY ethic of that.
Mm-hmm.
This was maybe the more pro level studio, but even at the time, the studio was just getting up and going. They had a good ward back in a big live room,
mm-hmm.
so everyone could monitor really well. But that was one of the more like eye-opening, and I think it's especially at that time in my life, I was definitely influenced by that.
What was the appeal of Montreal? Because you say that, but like we talked earlier, and I know like this city kind of took a hold of you pretty hard, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, by 2007, 2008, the economy in North America was hurting for sure, and Windsor especially. And after spending a weekend in Montreal, I'd visited before. I played shows and passing through with Yellowwood
mm-hmm.
A few times. And this particular weekend was just really special. Maybe it had to do with all the mushrooms I ingested. I have no idea.
Right.
It was probably part of that.
Right.
But like, it was just glowing, and I was like, wow. And it was maybe this time of year. It was very vibrant,
mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of music, and it for me was like, this is the next step I would like to go into, of transplanting to something on a bigger level, and which the members of the band were also into as well.
Oh, cool.
So some transplanted here with me as well. And we started to expand. However, it also led to our demise in our breakup, which was not very clean.
Oh, no?
No, and it does suck. However, 10 years later,
right?
Never say never, we've decided to be playing some live gigs.
To give it another shot?
To give it another shot. I mean, we had a great thing going. I think we had a really good chemistry on stage, in studio, as friends.
So this is the first time, like, because you guys have a show coming up at Fog in April. I don't know when this is coming up, so it's going to be closer. It either just happened or it's just about to happen.
That's true.
But is this going to be your first show in 10 years?
Yeah.
The fuck out of here, really? Because George told me about this, and he's like, you're going to want to come and see this.
You really are.
All right, and
there's going to be 7 of us.
And when George says you're going to want to come and see this, I perk my ears up, right? I have a lot of respect for that guy. So,
he has good taste in music, for sure.
So, and he was sort of explaining, so this is your first time in 10 years.
That's right. Now,
and you guys are spread out all over the fucking place, right?
Yeah, so I'm here in Montreal. Lee, our lead guitarist, is in New York. Other members are in Windsor, so it is spread out. The rhythm section is, I know, rehearsing quite diligently on our thread page. They are working. I'm also working here and rehearsing it was a little bit like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Like, I know these songs.
Right.
I haven't heard them in a while, but I know them. They're stuck somewhere. They're lodged in there. So it's been fun, and also, like, because I'm not really a go-getter for the stage
right
anymore. But it's a good push. And to be thinking about that again, and you know, a showmanship and a good performance, and I think after 10 years, a lot of what I can tell already, a lot of our attitudes have changed, or I think maybe our
some edges have softened.
That's a good way, yeah,
yeah,
a little bit less harsh. I just thought we really just had a very special chemistry together as the 6 to 7 of us, and having George on acoustic guitar is gonna be fun.
George is playing guitar for you?
Yeah, he had to learn all my acoustic parts.
Oh, okay. You're giving up on the acoustic parts, eh?
Well, you know, in studio, I was responsible for the acoustic parts.
Is this this will be your first stage performance in 10 years as well?
No,
okay.
I had a kind of surf psych garage band called Fingerprints for maybe 2 years. We kicked out 3 like close to full-length albums that I did in other project studios in Montreal. It was basically it was a project band. But we played live. Yeah, we did a number of gigs, and it was great.
That's awesome.
We'd either play as a 3 or 4 piece, sometimes with electric organ, sometimes not, and which is great. And it was also my first experience being like the front person in a group, which I was always like rhythm guitar, lead guitar, never really a vocal mic. So that was a new experience, and being a band leader to that sense, and producing it and engineering it, and it was a lot to take on, but it was a fantastic, like, the things I learned like 5 years ago doing these records.
It's so funny to me because you keep bringing up this term, and it's a fairly generic term, but band leader. Outside of like back in the day, the only time that I've heard anybody talk about that as a role was Dan O'Shea from My Son the Hurricane. They've got 14-piece brass and right, and so it makes sense. And he's their manager, he's their producer, their agent, all of that stuff. But he basically says, "I'm the band leader," and I've never, like, growing up in like observing rock and roll, never thought about like a band leader as being someone, but like it really, you need one of those in every band or else it's just going to fall apart.
Someone needs to make decisions.
Yeah.
That maybe not everyone will agree with, but democratically will connect with, ideally. And it's for the better of I feel like it's better for a group.
Right.
In a creative process to get 4, 5, 6, 7 musicians together. And to have a common goal, I think this can be understood.
Did you think of yourself as a band leader, or did that just become a role that...
At the time, no. And even in Golden Hands, I think I took on some leadership. We all had our different roles, but sometimes people would turn to me and like, okay, what are we recording? Like, what songs should we be going to? I was like, I would voice my opinion. And being the youngest member of the group, they were just asking me, and I excelled in some ways like that. I was not the lead singer,
right,
and I was not the lead songwriter. But I think everyone has their own roles, and it doesn't always have to be the front person who's the band leader. The drummer can be a band leader.
Well, Dan was the drummer.
Exactly, and I think that's a fine example. But again, it turns to someone being able to say yes or no and making decisions.
It's just interesting because I know, like, whenever you get groups of people together for anything, whether it's for a band or to play a game, sometimes you get these like weird roles that play out, and everybody walks in with like this idea of democracy being like, well, everybody gets the voice, and we just did it, and it's such bullshit.
Well, not that it's such bullshit. Like, I think everyone should be able to voice their opinion. But at the end of the day, everyone is working towards the same goal, is a fantastic product of your creation, right?
I think people get way too caught up in the minutiae of it sometimes. Like I think they let the details bog them down, because at the end of the day, like a lot of like, we're being very general and there's no specifics here, but like a lot of people get stuck on arguing about the simplest, like, doesn't matter piece of whatever, where if you don't have somebody that just goes, okay, yeah, I get it, you don't like that one, but we're going to move on and just kind of go with it. Like, if you don't have that person, it can derail the entire effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the importance of always staying creative is necessary as well. And to be able to say, let's move on. We can always revisit that.
Right.
I mean, technology today, you can bring up sessions from years ago.
Right.
You know, I've been sending small demos to the guys in the Golden Hands, and like, let me just say, like, I was coming up and Vicodin. What do you think? Like, I wrote this. Like, do you like it? I'm like, oh yeah, it's cool. But that's, that's I think the idea of groups of people together is, it is good to have a bit of leadership. I mean, not beneath an iron fist, but like, it's for the better of a group.
Do you take that role in here
as an engineer?
Yeah.
No. I voice some opinions if things are getting a bit busy, or if the performance isn't. When it's great, it's encouraging. When it's not, okay, let's move on. Okay, like, you, as my role in here, the idea to keep things running as smooth as possible always is the ultimate goal. And being a recording engineer, there's always a handful of little fires you're going to put out, like, this might not be working. Okay, fix that and make it look seamlessly. Right. And make it sound seamless as well. And, keeping your absolute, like, steady and like, okay, there's no problem. Everything's going to be fine.
Where did you learn that?
To not crack under pressure?
Yeah. Where did you learn that it was even a thing that you should do, and then what did it take to actually learn to be able to do it?
I did a few years of chefing in the
okay,
and that'll make your blood boil, and I've lost it in that atmosphere for sure. Like, I've seen other people lose it a lot worse than I have, but yeah, not that pressure of being on a line. People are expecting that service of, like, I have people relying on me. This is an expectation. You have to meet that expectation. Mm-hmm. So when you see someone and they're struggling and there's frustration and beads of sweat are coming out their head, it makes everyone around you that much more nervous, and you're second guessing things. And you see someone act like not that there's not a care in the world, but like being cool.
Shut up, stupid. It's just another day.
It's another day, but you keep it cool, and you don't let the little things fluster you. And you watch people's reactions around you, and it's completely different. If you keep cool, everyone else will. Surprisingly,
you start to become the leader just by default.
By default, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not making any huge principal decisions of of any of that, and unless it's music I'm producing, which comes to decision making, and it takes days or weeks to make decisions, or in the mix process, there's different things. But in the recording situation, it's about capturing someone's performance, and by capturing the best performance, make it as seamless and easy as possible. Yeah. Like you're playing on the edge of your bed in your living room or something, and you're not playing for anyone else. Once you start putting many microphones in front of people tense up. Right. And it happens, and it's okay. I do the same thing. Or you go on stage, you get nervous. Mm-hmm. There's certain nerves. Through those nerves, an energy can be built up, and it can be.
But you have to learn how to harness that. It's not just something that comes through.
Yeah. So you kind of craft that, and it's important. It's an important role in this. But I'm not trying to implement any of my ideas of there should be a screaming fuzz solo on this or anything. But
no, but I think what's interesting, and it's funny because you talk about you talk about as your role as an engineer, just kind of making everything calm and sort of relaxed and just kind of making your way through. But it's funny because I think you do show all of that leadership just by when the doors open. Now, for the audience, I stayed here last night by myself, right? So I had some time to just kind of walk around and check it out. You were nice enough to say that that's a thing I can do. So I walked around, I looked around, and one of the things that really struck me is, like, with the exception that your killer board that is just behind the camera is sitting on cinder blocks.
Yeah, it is.
But with the exception of that, nothing in this studio seems anything other than, like, the most serene, sort of, like, impeccably deep. Like, the floors are fucking clean.
They are.
There's no dust on, like, this is a big place, right? And there isn't dust on knickknacks and stuff. Like, it's taken care of.
Yeah, but things get used quite a lot here, and so dust doesn't really build up. Like,
you got plants sitting in that corner.
Yeah.
Okay, I have been to studios you've been to studios.
Oh, there's no plants.
Forget plants. The only reason there's plants is because they're growing out of whatever the hell is in the corner.
Yeah, there's a fungus or something. Yeah, we're lucky to have sunlight here, but things are used quite a lot here. I mean, there's guitars. You're gonna find dust here, and normal things of any of that. But yeah, we have it's kind of a homey feel. Yeah. Not to be confused with a home studio. This is a professional working space. But yeah, when things get used a lot, they don't collect dust. Guitars get picked up, they're going to vibrate, shut the dust off, keeping the floors clean, that's just, I mean, we have a lot of people coming in and out.
That's a little fine point on it, but the place is well kept, it's well maintained, and it's like you can tell that you put attention into the details of the stuff around you. Like, you're not just throwing shit wherever, you're not just, you know what I mean? Like, you're not I can't think of the word but like you're not spazzing out all over the place. You know what I mean? Like,
there's instances where there is spaz,
sure,
and you're setting things up quickly because you want things. If things are going well and someone's got an idea and you want to capture something well, like,
get on it,
and that's okay. That'll be a spaz. Like, fine example, we're doing pre-production yesterday, and there's mic cables everywhere.
Right.
I'm not the engineer to, like, make sure they're all laid out perfectly. That's not my style.
Right.
I'm more concerned about capturing a great performance. If there's cables on the floor, that's fine. I'll pick them up after.
Right.
And that's no problem.
Yeah.
Until that point, like, if you go into the live room, there's mics hanging everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they're kept clean. Someone else comes. Okay, we're cutting a vocal. This mic's here. Let's put it here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to. You don't always need to overthink things. By our setup here. I mean, other than the cinder blocks, which are great, by the way.
No, I think they're awesome. I'm just, out of everything that's in here, those are the only thing that are slightly out of place. Like, that's the only thing that would belong in a basement studio.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything else is like, I feel like I'm in a Toronto, well, I'm in a Montreal studio. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we're just cool.
Right. A little French.
We're on the east side. So.
Right.
Yeah, well, just keeping this as a comfortable place. I want people to feel comfortable. I've walked into bigger name studios, and they're beautiful. And there's a team of people to take care of and manage the place and run the books. A lot of that responsibility is on me, but I have a great team of people that I work with here too that I can also rely on. Nobody's leaving dishes. Dishes. We have a functional kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
That was really important to the building of this studio. Like, you spend 12, 14, 18 hours a day working. You have to eat.
Right.
And stepping out for food is fine, but to keep sessions running smooth, toss something in the oven and have coffee on, for sure.
Well, and I mean, especially because it's music and it's art, right? Because, like, even that, like, getting up and changing environments can sort of, like, kill whatever you're working on. So be able to just...
It can kill some momentum. However, sometimes that momentum needs to be killed.
You need it.
If there's a bad momentum, it's like, okay, let's take 45. let's go on the terrace upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's watch the sunset and chill out. Then let's crack into whatever we're talking about again.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not beat our heads and try to do all these drum edits right
now.
No,
I just mean like if you've got a good session going, and all of a sudden it's like, oh well, we're hungry, but we're going to take off to a restaurant and then come back. You lose that momentum.
Oh
right?
Yeah, you will lose a chunk of time for sure. So keeping things on schedule is important. Keeping that stamina. Also the studio is demanding of that. It's a mental stamina.
Yeah.
Like you are using your ears a lot.
Talk to me about building this place. Like, what was it when you first? Because I know you put a lot of work into this yourself.
Yeah.
So, what was it when you first came in, and then what is it? What do you have going now?
Well, when I came in, it was advertised as a like a co-working art space. There's some things in this room. This room was constructed already, not like it is at all now. These panels were built. All of this is built by me.
Okay.
The bass traps in the corners and things I had from smaller, project studios in the past that I just take with me because they just work really well. They're big and they cut out low frequencies for sure.
Right.
Painting. The floors were installed. All of the cabling, that's a whole other can of worms there. I mean, we don't really see anything where we're at now, but the integrated patch bays and the right hand patch bays, that's hours of soldering.
Yeah,
but that pays off. The cables run into the live room.
So like you hand soldered all these cables?
Oh yeah. One of our members here was very integral to bringing up the console to spec. It's running very clean. It was in New York for a few years, in storage, but that's a lot of hours of labor and putting a lot of hours spent at the workbench. The workbench it moved around in this room quite a lot.
Right.
But before this was really set up, like there was a lot of time spent at that bench.
Well, I see you've got that little workbench in the kitchen. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's the bench, and then when you start with one bench, I had the bench between these two windows, and you have gear like laid out in the windows because we can take components from this, and this is going to work. Okay, let's wire up our 16 in, 16 out for this, and also because it is a DIY space, we do a lot of things ourselves. We have techs that we reach out for help a lot. But there's also the fascination of doing these things yourself.
It's funny, because it was you that I was talking, because you'll have to excuse me, sometimes these conversations blend a little bit, but it was you that was talking about that. Oh yeah, because it's the analog stuff that is most excites you, right?
Apart.
Yeah, right?
You put it back together. My father's mechanic was encouraging me to put an alternator on the kitchen table. Right. And take it apart. Can you put it back together? And no, but it was fascinating. This, however, knowing the components that go into it, also running things smoothly, like I mentioned, with this amount of analog gear. If something fails mid-session, you ideally can fix it, solve the problem.
Oh yeah.
If we have a couple mic cables, they need to be fixed. Okay, give me 15 minutes. That's fine. And
you never get shut down for half a day because you have to do a software update.
No.
This is me looking at you, Adobe.
No, I mean we have some powerful computers here for sure.
Right.
We have some powerful tape machines too. They're very hi-fi.
Yeah.
But again, with that, things crap out.
What's the kind of stuff you like doing in here? And I know the answer is you like to do whatever comes in and pays the bills, but what's your favorite stuff to work on?
No, that's, paying the bills. Everyone has rent to pay. That's sure. Okay. I like music that might make you a little bit uncomfortable. I think music creatively should pull something out of you. Either it's comfort or discomfort. I like, a bit of both. So I like original. I like it when a band comes in, they sound like nothing, or a musician comes in. I've not too many things that I can compare it to, and when their sound is rather original, and that's really
How often does that come through the door?
Quite a bit. I think.
Yeah?
I think Montreal music scene has an eclectic thing going out. And I think most of the friends and scenes I surround myself with, there's some very talented people in the city.
Talk to me about the art and culture scene here in Montreal, because like as a not Canadian as we've been joking about
sure.
from Windsor, you hear about Montreal. I think coming up in Windsor, when you think about Montreal, you think about a language barrier, number one. You think about, at least I do, I think about Montreal kind of being the hub of like, almost like the seat of, and this is kind of weird, but like the seat of the conflict between like the Francophones and the Anglophones in Canada.
Well, it was a hotbed for a period of time.
Right. And outside of that, being like this outsider kid that never really explored Canada, coming to Montreal is kind of, it's like, oh, I'm going to a foreign land, right? So, but talk to me about what it's like for real once you're here.
Well, it's not scary. I mean, as an Anglophone in Quebec, in Montreal, it can have some challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Try dealing with the government for having a young business in Montreal.
Oh, right.
Like there's some language barriers. However, if you embrace it, it is a bilingual city.
Yeah,
absolutely. And with that, I think it makes the city very special. But when Montreal was developing, like turn of the century, like Montreal was kind of the princess of Canada.
Right.
It was, the architecture here is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful in the old port. It's jaw dropping. But the by having so many, the language, the different influence of Quebec, it makes this a very unique place in Canada. Absolutely. Maybe by default because it's affordable.
Yeah,
it's an affordable city, and creative
surprises me.
People flock here from all over Canada and in North America.
I didn't realize Montreal is considered like an affordable city. I sort of expected that it would be one of the more expensive cities in the country.
I mean, comparatively to Vancouver and Toronto as a metropolis, Montreal is very. It's for a creative to live and be able to work and put food on their table and to do things like this, or have a working, functioning band, or living off of music. It's absolutely possible. The problem is, over the 10 years I've been here, 11 years, Montreal is a little bit of a stepping stone. Okay. It helps people live off their music or art for a period of time, but a lot of my friends have left. They've gone other places. Maybe they've gone, back to New York, back to Toronto, or back to the UK. And I support that for sure. And because
what do you mean it's a stepping stone? Like where are you stepping from, and then where are you stepping to if you're coming to Montreal? Like Montreal does, Montreal seems like a destination to me.
It is a destination. Maybe just the people I've surrounded myself with. It's there's always other things on the horizon. There's other opportunities too.
Right.
I've clearly established myself here and decided to stay for good reason. But there's a lot of it is a bit of a revolving doors, and I think it's fantastic for that reason because creative ideas come through here, creative minds. It's really special for that.
Is there a lot of music in the city?
Oh, there's a ton.
Yeah?
Yeah. I sent you a link to one show that was happening. It was a little bit later last night, but there was a fantastic festival happening in the southwest of the island, and it was outdoor and live music in the daylight hours. It's fantastic. There's Distillation Psych Fest is happening early May. A lot of smaller festivals are gaining ground. They're going on the 4th, 5th year, and it's great.
What about like the club scene, like that sort of thing? Like are there places I can go see like local people playing?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, some of the venues unfortunately have been having to close their doors permanently because of.
That's across the board. That's everywhere.
That's of course. And it always hits the community kind of hard. Like, oh, I wish this venue was still around. Like, but it's normally to a complaining neighbor of over many years about noise complaints. Mm-hmm. The city is growing, of course, it always has been, but there's plenty of clubs to play in here. In this neighborhood directly, not too much because it is residential and we're on an industrial commercial path right here. But I mean, I don't think you can throw a stone out your window in Montreal and not hit a musician or a Oh yeah. We're very lucky for that. And again, it goes back to my point of affordability. I think people are able to live this lifestyle here and unfortunately deal with winter,
right?
Which seems never ending. But I mean, once I had this theory that like all of the young people would turn in, like when I was visiting Montreal 12 years ago, I would see like I would be walking in the streets and I would see like old people and they'd have this cart and they'd be kind of trucking along, and I wouldn't really see too many young people, or maybe because I wasn't living here yet, but I had this theory that when springtime came, like all the old people became young people again, like growing, and it was just this goofy theory I had with a friend of mine, and the city becomes extremely vibrant come spring. The parks are flooded, people are playing music everywhere, people are painting, and it's a really special scene. Visiting other cities, I'm always happy to, but then I come back here and it's like, wow, this is a very special place to be in right now.
Well, it's interesting because you told me, like, when we were talking yesterday, you were saying, like, this is the French area of the city? Right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you go more west. Mm-hmm. You go west, and it is... There's Anglophone neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. But again, it is a bilingual city, so things do... It's never like, this is French, this is English.
Sure.
We know that NDG is predominantly English-speaking. The plateau right now is predominantly French.
Okay.
When you go east of Saint Laurent, which is the main, which cuts the city in two, divides it. Geographically, it goes north and south. If you go east of Saint Laurent, it is more French speaking. But again, like everyone is bilingual here.
Right.
My French. I immerse myself as much as I can. I have,
right,
and I do the best I can. Am I absolutely fluent? No, but it's a beautiful language, and that shouldn't stop anyone from.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even going down that road. I was just kind of talking about like what you know about the area of the city, and because you were saying like, so this side is French. You know that there's other areas that are Anglophone or whatever, and I get that it mixes in general, but like because you were also talking about like this is the poor side of town, like this was there was sort of, there's always been this battle between English and French here in Montreal, and surprisingly to me, the French kind of lost. We're on the losing end of the side of it.
Yeah, historically the money was in the West.
Okay.
And people with less money were in the East. That's I think geographically the mountains also over here you pay for height, right? This area was like marshland. It was like before settlers. It was marsh. It was the plateau was like a swamp. Okay. So all the buildings are kind of like they sink and rise every winter. But yeah, that's just it's ingrained in part of the history here.
Because it's a beautiful area. Like you go walking through here, and like the all the buildings are like. Well, you were saying like Montreal's a very, very like tight city. Like everything's like right next to each other. But it's kind of walking through. It's not European. Like you don't get a European feel, but it's very like it's distinct.
Well, I think it does get a bit of a European comparison. If you go more south of the city, Old Port, that is that's 400-year-old buildings and all these things, but. It does get some of this comparison, but yeah, people are living. We're in dense population,
right?
But the cities, everything's accessible. I wouldn't say this is like a lower class neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I live in this neighborhood, but it is definitely up and coming. Around this was, it was a lot of factory workers. It was, everyday people in blue collar. people in the West were owning these factories.
Right.
And the smoke from those factories were going east with the wind. You know what I mean? So it makes the city rather eclectic for what it is, and I think it has a certain uniqueness to it that not a lot of cities have in Canada, at least.
Contrast your experience for me living in a city like this versus living in Windsor.
Ooh, I mean,
this is a topic that's come before. Let me give you a little green light here, okay?
For sure.
Everybody I've talked to who has, for lack of a better term, escaped Windsor.
I've heard it a lot.
Right? Everybody says basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like they all say the same thing. Windsor is a tough town to be an artist in. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you that caveat and go ahead with what you're going to say.
I mean, in comparison, like I spent my adult life in Montreal. Since I escaped Windsor at a pretty young age in my adult life. I don't know if there's that much comparison that I can really afford to give you, because I spent most of my 20s here, and
okay.
I'm into my mid 30s now. So at this point, it's like I visit, but
this has become home.
This is absolutely home, but Windsor is always home too. Right? That's a fact. So I visit and I see all the great people I want to see, but I guess I don't know the same struggles that maybe some other people do about, hustling, being a musician, trying to book gigs, trying to get bands across the border, or trying to go across the border as well.
Right.
Because Detroit's right there. So I might not have the perspective, because I left at 22, 23, I think, yeah.
So you kind of did all your adult growing up here anyway.
Yeah. Not to say that I don't have an opinion about it. I mean,
sure.
I think it makes Windsor a very special place because it has some struggles of there's not a lot of venues to play. I experienced some of that, of course. Getting across the border 10 years ago wasn't that easy.
Right.
As a dual citizen now, it's by law I can. But there is some limitations. But I think there's a ton of good talent in Windsor. Whenever someone sends me like, "Hey, it's my friend's band. Yeah, I'm playing in this band. Mm-hmm. Friends from Windsor." It's always like, "Fuck, that's good." It's normally my initial reaction. I don't know if there's something in the water in the Detroit River or something.
I mean, I'm pontificating here, but I'm convinced it has something to do with the fact that we're being right across the river from Detroit, we're connected, but we're separate. So we have all of the sort of overflow from the talent, right? Like if you start, and I have with like the WMA and that kind of thing, you start digging into the history of like entertainment and music in Windsor. What you find is you get all of the direct influences, like my best friend was Barry Gordy, like that kind of shit, right? Like you get those. It's those artist adjacent things, kind of like we were talking before, right? Like you've got the big names that everybody knows, and then you have all of the people who they surround themselves with.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And those people that you see as like the big names really are the result of the people they surround themselves with. And what Windsor is all those fucking people.
Well, I mean, the circles grow, right?
Yeah.
So-and-so knows them, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And geographically, we're neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. As Windsor and Detroit. I wish some of the barriers, I'd like to see some of the barriers torn down, as far as musicians crossing the border, mm-hmm. as bands from the U.S. can come into Canada with little to no questions. But with our visas as Canadians going into the U.S., it's a totally different story. That is something I would like to see change in the near future, mm-hmm. Because it's a great market to play for sure. And then there's a ton of people to play with, but I think that what happens in Windsor most time is because you refer to Windsor as a bit of an island because of the Great Lakes and the surrounding lakes, and it is so south. Not that you're struggling to escape the island, but work with what you got, and there's a ton of talent in there.
Oh, 100%.
And it's never too far from all of the things that start to radiate out of that scene, and I think it can really spread. And I like it. Do I miss it? No. But...
I think it's funny because I think the one thing that I've learned more than anything in just this journey of talking with artists and stuff, most of whom have come out of Windsor, is that when you grow up as like a young creative kid in Windsor, in that area, you feel like the world of creativity is so far removed from you. Like, because you don't know anybody who does this shit. They're all factory workers and whatever, and like, all right, I'm going to do this, that. And it turns out, like, no, like, every one of them is, and nobody's figured out how to tell each other. Like, it's...
Oh, I was, growing up, being a creative, I was bullied, I was harassed, I was...
Yeah.
It was, if you're a little bit different, it's not always supported. Times change, and it's small town Windsor. You run into those issues, but if you're good enough to just brush it off and keep going and not let it stop you, then that's fine. Maybe those that blue collar mentality is like, it's okay. I think some of that generates maybe some angst and it it energizes creativity, and that's quite all right.
I honestly think that blue collar mentality is almost what the entertainment industry needs more of now.
Interesting. Why?
It's the just get it fucking done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And you're a producer guy, and you sound like you're definitely an explory type, but like artists have a bad habit of like, okay, are we fucking done?
Yeah.
Like at some point, it's better to just be done than to be perfect.
That's true. There's times to let things go and to finish what you've done and to let it go into the world. It's hard when you're very attached to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe some of the blue collar mentality is okay. I mean, I like to work all the time.
Yeah.
Can I always do it? No. But I think I have some of that ingrained into me for sure. Just good work ethic. Get things done.
The folks that I get to talk to usually do. Right? So like the people like yourselves who have managed to kind of, take yourself out and get yourself here or whatever. Like that's, to me, I look at guys like you as an anomaly. Right? Because, just because of exactly what you're talking about. You go back to Windsor and you look at the talent pool there, and you can literally walk into whatever random fucking bar on a Thursday night, and there's going to be some guy or some girl up on the stage with a guitar in hand playing a song, and you're going to look at him and go, I'd pay $50 to see this in a theater, and it's happening at this pub for free. But then that person like walks out and goes home and then gets in their regular job and does whatever and never gets the encouragement that they would normally get in a different place. So you get this mentality that like, well, it doesn't matter how good I am, nothing's going to come of it. And that you feel stuck in there. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, like I was that person playing, free shows and in smaller venues and smaller bars, or making a few bucks, and I always try to see a bigger picture and look ahead a bit, and make decisions that were hopefully benefiting my musicianship and what I was going to do to keep perseverance through this. You said your mom was a waitress, and your dad was a mechanic. Yeah.
So you didn't have factory work in your house.
No, not like on the line. No. I mean,
there's a mentality there, that is growing up in a house where there is a big building that is going to provide you and your family with everything you need, sort of teaches you to rely on the big building.
But as the mechanic, you're fixing what's coming out of that factory,
right? But it's different because he's self-employed. Because I'm guessing he was a mechanic at like he was a mechanic either at his own or at Kevin's fucking garage.
Oh, it was a home garage.
Yeah. So there's entrepreneurship there. Factories don't teach you entrepreneurship.
That's true, and I guess as a waitress, there's a bit of that.
There's hustle.
There's hustle, and you're feeding the people that work in the factories, right?
Who all come out going, "I deserve."
Or the Detroit Red Wings, and my mom would come home like, "Hey, I got Steve Eisenman autograph for you." You fed him ribs, right on. He's my favorite hockey player. That's cool. So I guess it was. I wasn't. Knowing the work ethic of hustling, of making ends meet for yourself is ingrained in me. But friends and family friends growing up, it was very normal that people were working transmission plant and all that stuff.
It's normal, but what I'm getting at is you came from a house that even though you grew up in Windsor, you didn't grow up in Windsor. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess in most scenarios, I don't. Maybe it's a little bit different.
Because if you look at the majority of the households in Windsor,
like we were not millionaires by any means.
It's not, but it's not about the amount of money. It's about the mentality about how that money comes in, right? Because you look at the majority of the people in Windsor. You've got the big three that were there for. I mean, it's different now because like it's not like it was. But growing up when you and I grew up, there was 5 Ford plants, 2 GM plants, 2 Chrysler plants. Those were just the big ones. And then there's all the feeder factories that work outside of that. All of the people and all of the families and my family included, right? Dad worked at Chrysler, Mom worked at GM, so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that stuff. But it's a different mentality because growing up in those houses, what you learn is there's a place you go from X hour to X hour. They're going to give you this amount of money, and plus you're going to get benefits, and then this is how you pay for the dentist, and then this is how you pay your doctor because it's all going to come from this building, this box. So go to the box and go earn your life.
So when the plug is pulled on that, which is
every 5 years, every 8 years, yeah.
Right. And but that that affects the factory. But for the people that are hustling and working for themselves, providing a service to the people that work in a factory, that it trickles down. I mean,
definitely trickles down, but you're coming from a place where you already know how to hustle. So like as it's getting pulled back, you've already come, and I mean it's not, I'm oversimplifying for sure, but you're coming from a place where it's like you didn't know 2 weeks ago, like you knew your money was coming in because there's this thing you were doing, but if it didn't, then okay, I got to do something to generate more income. Whereas when you rely on that box, that factory, and they pull the plug, you're sort of lost out in the wilderness of like, where's the next box I grab onto?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to think about, for sure. And when those plugs started, pulled out, and the economy really sucked. It was sunk in 2008, 2009. That's when
you took off.
I took off. There's some problems I was probably running away from that. As a young kid.
You're a kid, right?
22, 23. Like,
did it feel like that? Did it feel like you were running?
At the time, no. I had no I think I wanted to escape some of this, and I think I wanted to escape myself. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you move somewhere else, it's going to fix your problems. But no, it doesn't fix any problems. I mean, there was a period of time, like, substance abuse was very important.
Right.
And it's impacting my life a lot. And that's what I should have been trying to escape, but that's not what I did. I was trying to escape Windsor and my surroundings, and
right.
some poor relationships that I'd had, mismanaged or something like this. However, the idea of leaving, I think, was looking back, was me running away from a couple individuals probably, and that's. And again, looking back, I don't think I had much of a choice, and maybe it wasn't the best time to be doing that. But I learned.
Happy where you landed?
I don't think I hit the ground running by any means. I did a face plant and then had to kind of pick myself up, and I had a lot of generous people helping me out here for sure. But when you arrive in a city and you don't really know anyone,
mm-hmm.
it's a little daunting, and you don't speak the first language yet, but you learn. And I think as spending my adult life here, most of my the beginning of my adult life has definitely been for the better. I think it's been fantastic. I've seen some wicked shows here, and things that I wouldn't even know. Like,
yeah,
you walk into an underground club and a band is playing. You're like, who is that? And then the next year it's like, oh, that was them, and they were just passing through, and it was a very underground club.
Yeah.
And that's just like there's some fantastic talent that passes through, and it's not every time you go out and you see these things, but it's just such a great community of music here. And I think for me being here personally right now and having what we have here is what I can a bit that's my contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not good at promoting shows or booking shows or even my own projects for that matter. But if I can help in any way, let people be creative in this space and offer them that and help. That's my responsibility. So that I have that to get up in the morning for, other than my coffee.
I appreciate all of your hospitality, man. I really thank you for inviting me into your space. It's an incredible spot.
Anytime.
Yeah. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Yeah.
There's lots of links and everything to figure out where the studio and more about Steven down below. A couple more videos that are going to be coming up here in a minute, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of the AVB Podcast. We'll see you next time. That'll do it for this episode of the AVB Podcast. Don't forget you can subscribe to our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.